Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
hear we're live. It
Yeah,
says we're
we are
live.
live.
We're
Whatever.
live. Hey, everybody.
Hey, everybody. F you.
Hello.
Good thing I wasn't doing anything
Five,
embarrassing.
four, three. CGP Video Pictures presents Trek Tonight, Season 3. This week, Lower Decks. With your hosts, Christopher Pitcher, Leo Byrne Janicek, and Keith Jacobson. Tonight's review, episodes 7 and 8. And now live from New York City, Wilmington, Delaware, and Everett, Washington, it's Trek Tonight.
Hello. Welcome, everybody. A little different show this week. We've had some technical difficulties. The binars came in to try to fix it, but they can only think in terms of yes or no, so there were problems. Um, we're back. Uh, Technologically, we're sound, but Chris has got it's either the Rigelian flu or a case of shore leave. We're not sure which. We'll leave it up to the doctor to figure that out. I am Leo Genesek. I'll be one of your co-hosts along with Keith Jacobson. Say hello, Keith.
Hello, Keith. It's
All
classic.
right,
What can I say? Yes.
there you go. How can you can't beat that?
You can't beat
So
that.
because we're a
You're
little
getting
behind
your
schedule.
money's worth when it comes to comedy today.
Exactly. I do remind you this show is free, so you are getting your money's worth. Um, we're covering because we're a little behind the eight ball. We're going to be covering the previous 2 weeks episode. Next week we'll be back to cover the two finales because, as usual, it is sort of a two-part, exciting two-part, finale. For those of you who've already seen it, but we will be discussing a few badges more in caves. Now, a couple of bits of business first. I want to show off. I found in a thrift store. I got a says this is my Borg tiki mug. So
Oh, that is
uh,
cool.
if I uh, if I uh, if I put a cocktail in it, I will become assimilated. Let me. Mm, yes, it's just Coke Zero. Don't be alarmed. Um, and also, friend of the show, Aaron Waki, should be very pleased because Star Trek Prodigy is coming back. That's big news
Yay!
for those of you who have not been on the internet for a number of weeks, but I thought we'd address it. Be on Netflix starting next year. They're going to put on season one and then season two after that. I'm not sure the dates have not been established, but I'm looking forward to it. So
Yes. Oh,
it just shows what fandom can do. So I do imagine that Paramount Plus might be wishing they had another season of Prodigy to show about now because the actors have not
oopsie.
resolved their strike. We certainly hope that they
Oopsie.
can come to a an agreement that is good for everybody. Let's put it that way.
Indeed. Yes.
So let's start. Keith, do you have any news? Do you have anything you want to share with the folks at home?
Hi. No, I mean I'm here. I got a vest. I've gotten into vests now, so
Yes, Keith is he's rocking sort of Hobbiton chic
I
there with his vest. Very nice.
and it makes a
Um,
very stylish spot to put my com
it
badge.
does. It's Picard esque when he had his.
Yes,
You take off his jacket and he had that vest underneath. Very nice.
it doesn't chirp
Um,
when I tap it though. That's
it does.
disappointing.
I'm wearing my. That's always we're always up against the eight ball technologically. I'm wearing my Star Trek flight jacket, which I got at Heroes and Villains online. They're not paying me, but check it out. They have a lot of really cool nerd gear. So depend on a, with a, from a variety of let's call them franchises. Yes,
Right.
the word I was looking for was franchise. So let's get right to it. Let's
Yes,
start with a few
let's.
badges more, which was episode 7, I believe. I'll give you a brief rundown, which is uh, Badgie, who reside in Rutherford's old eyepieces and is found and attaches itself to a Drachmani captain. The Binars are attacked by a mystery ship. Tendi and Boimler go to the Daystrom Institute to check on Peanut Hamper and Agamus. Rutherford and Manager fight Badgie on the Drachmani ship. We other sides of Badgie, literally, evil AIs, maybe not so evil as it turns out, and Badgie evolves literally. So
Yes.
those are sort of the bullet points. I hope that refreshes your memory, Keith, because I know you haven't seen
Let's
the
see.
episode.
Yes, yes. I haven't seen them for a couple of weeks, so I got a memory like a almost 64-year-old. So let's see how this goes.
So,
I can tell.
any did you like the episode? Let's start with
Overall,
that.
yes, I really did like the episodes. I really I liked especially I like both of them. I like both this one and the other one.
Caves.
I kind of like this one maybe touch more. It's hard to say for sure exactly because
It's been a while.
I'm always a sucker for a redemption story, and
Oh
this
yeah, by
was
the way,
like,
Joe Tansel gives us a thumbs up, so thank you, Joe. Friend of the show, Joe Tansel. And Scott
hey,
Taylor is in the
Scott,
hizzy. Thank you, Scott.
is he?
Very nice.
Woo! So I I'm a sucker for redemption stories. This was like three redemption stories all in one episode, so that was kind of
Yeah,
cool.
Star Trek, especially I would say Lower Decks, is really big on redemption stories. A lot of villains end up being redeemed. Not all of them. General Buenamigo turned out to be a villain and got his just desserts previously. But I would say that, yeah, a lot of villains tend to be redeemed, especially on Lower Decks. I liked it. So do you want to talk about each storyline?
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to
Let's
handle.
start with Tindy and Boimler. I also like seeing mixing up the pairings because it's usually,
Yes.
you know, uh, Mariner and Boimler and Tindy and Rutherford, but I like them switching it up.
Hmm.
Um, so they are sent to Earth because Peanut Hamper is going to have a sort of a parole hearing, and apparently she's doing quite well. So she's there, to just make sure that everything is on the up and up. And Agamus, I don't know why I
Agavus,
said
yes.
Agamagus. That's not the thing. Agamus, voiced by the great Jeffrey Combs, the man for all seasons of Star Trek,
I
uh,
am a
has some
sucker for
information about the missing ships.
Jeffrey
And he will only
Combs.
speak to Boimler, who refers to was it the ensign meat pipe, um, or meat pipe ensign. And there he's a little suspicious as he would be, but he claims to have information about the missing Binar ship. We also see a Binar ship uh, be attacked by the mystery ship, and what's interesting is listening to the Binar speak. And I have not watched the original episode where the Binars appeared, but it's you could almost hear voices in it, but it's sort of like this weird electronic gibberish, and then it sounds like you're listening to a conversation across from they're the Binars, all neatly paired up as they should be, looking horrified by their lack of acumen against this mystery ship. Um, so I do like all the we get to see all these evil AIs being like rehabilitated,
Mm.
and they have like group therapy, including a character who maybe one of my favorite character names in this whole season
Oh,
is Lord Tyrannokilicus.
Lord
Um,
Tyrannokilicus. That is a
I am. It
fantastic
is
name.
unclear if he gave himself that name. I can't imagine any ethical scientist would name their AI that name. It does sound like something he adopted himself. Um,
Like, good
but
point.
he's trying to defeat his own issues. And by the way, in this picture, if you look right next to to the left of the institute worker, there's a tiny little robot. It's sort
Oh
of,
yeah.
and he's got a little tiny light in it, and he's adorable. And I'm like, what did he do to end up
Oh.
there?
Oh
He
wow.
looks like he
I
looks
want to
like
know
something
more
that you
about
would
that.
buy in a Japanese, like anime gift shop. Um, just so cute. He's not named. He doesn't have any lines, but I'm a little obsessed with him. He doesn't really do anything. It's just a visual that pleases me. So
Neat,
um,
neat. Yeah. Wow. Uh, I think this arc here, this story here, the one with Agamus especially,
yeah,
was my favorite of the stories in here because Jeffrey Combs.
yes,
Anything with Jeffrey Combs is fantastic, and he steals every episode he's in.
sure.
Um,
Well,
it's just yeah.
yeah, no, he's always great. But he and Peanut Hamper are plotting that when she's going to give a fake speech, like to show that she's rehabilitated, and he's made himself. His lights are going blue now, so because evil robots have red lights and good robots have blue lights.
Blue lights, yes.
Um, and the plot is like once she gets sprung, she's going to give this 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 convincing speech and get herself sprung, and that they're going to escape. So he basically kidnaps Boimler and Tendi, who because he promises I'm going to tell you, or take you to where my drone found the Binar attack, but then he takes over the ship, and they're landing in I believe it was Ecuador on the beach because Peanut Hamper is supposed to meet them there, and the 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 calmness of both Boimler and Tendi just waiting for this to play out because they're just like they know that
Yeah.
they can reassert control at any given point, but they want the information. I love Tenny's delight with Earth sand.
Yes.
Uh, she describes it. We don't have this on Orion. It's just like a lot of sharp little pebbles.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I just want to point out the character growth we've seen over the season. And again, that's been like a running theme for me every time we do one of these shows. But
yes,
Boimler is not panicking. I mean,
no,
if this had happened to season one Boimler, they'd be all,
oh yeah,
but no,
yeah.
he's just sitting there going, fine, yes, get
He
on with
keeps
it.
trying to get him to give him information, and they're like, maybe we're on the wrong beach. All these beaches look alike, and then you find like a trowel because Peanut Hamper had been harvesting tomatoes or like had a little tomato garden, um, and they're like, well, maybe she went to the planet we're supposed to dominate, so let's go there. And they're like, all right. Tendy's like, ugh. She's like, well, I'm going to take some of this sand with me. I love the fact that she has her boots off and she's just like making a sand castle, and it just
Hmm.
delights her. She squeals in delight, which was very very charming.
Hmm.
And they go to the planet, which apparently has a reptilian civilization, and he's taken over. And even Boimler says, "Yeah, no, it's no way that Starfleet could reverse this in like an hour." Um, and he's sad because Peanut Hamper is not there. They were supposed to dominate the species together, and Tandy's like, "Well, we can find out where she is because she's like paroled, so she's in the system." They find out that there's a
There's
Peanut
Peanut
Hamper,
Hamper.
and they go. It is the same station that there was Exocomps first appeared in on TNG, which was kind of neat. Um, and they go there and they find out that she's actually has been like she actually wants to make up for it. She doesn't want to dominate, and she's like, I just like spending time with you. Both of them realize that they're very close friends. And he's like, listen, I've already dominated a planet. I just wanted to spend more time with you, and it's very sweet. And
Hmm.
they meet her dad, whose name is Kevin, apparently, and he's like, oh no, and Agamus is sort of very deferential. He's like, oh no, sir, it's not like that. We're just very close friend. You raised a very like outstanding daughter, and he agrees to go back to the Daystrom Institute for more rehabilitation, and even Lord Tranakelikas wants him to help him to maybe be a better AI. Well, I don't know, but we can try. And he does finally give formula the information about
Right.
the Bynars, how the ship was not destroyed, but it was sort of stolen, um, which we will find out more. This is how did you get those shots from my meeting today? Well,
Like,
uh,
uh,
Lord
your
Lord
cell phone cameras.
Tyrannocalicus is monitoring your every move, Craig. So I wouldn't be worried. Uh,
Or I would be worried. Your
well,
choice.
you six of one, half dozen another. Depends on where you land on the whole AI issue. Um, so it was sweet. Agamus is sort of on his way to redemption, and it's kind of nice because he actually finds out that friendship is important, which is a very Starfleet sort of
Mm-hmm.
Federation ideal. I'm hoping we get to see both more of him and Peanut Hamper in the future. Um, and that basically wraps up there. And they're like, "Oh, we got to get this to Starfleet." So I enjoyed their storyline. Things on the Cerritos not so much fun, uh, as it turns out, because they're investigating the Binar disappearance, and then uh, Badgie shows up with his Dukmani crew, which have all had like implants put on them to control them, and he starts firing on the Cerritos. And every time he shoots the fishes, he goes boop, 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 to the extent that Shaq says, "Captain, I don't know if we can take any more boops," um, which is in the running for maybe the best line of the episode. Um, and the captain wants Rutherford to be like, "Yep, there he is, commanding the
Badgie.
Duckmoney, not none too happy about being controlled by uh, Badgie, who does kill the captain, who was like, try to help, wants help, and then he kills him. So that's what you get for disobeying a direct order. Um, what were your thoughts about this storyline, Keith? Because
I
before I
again,
start,
the more I think about it, the more I mean, how can I put? I love the arc that Badgie goes through.
yes,
I love how they handle it, and I love eventually what happens to Badgie at the end of this story, which is pretty cool, and
there he is,
continues.
Rutherford. Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
It's so Rutherford goes out like puts on a vac suit, jumps out the airlock at the ship. Despite the captain wanting him to stay and give them some sort of insight on how to defeat Badgie, and he goes up there, and Rutherford follows him, and she lands there. He said, "Well, what's your plan?" He said, "I don't really
Mariner
had a
follows
plan. I
him.
was just basically let myself get killed." She's like, "That's a terrible plan," um,
She's not
and
wrong.
she's not wrong, but a very noble move by Rutherford. But then he realizes that he'd been a bad father to Badgie, and he hugs him. Something he says, "I should have done this a long time ago," and then Badgie seemingly redeemed until he splits off into uh, two parts. There's Badgie, the evil figure, and then Guji, a silver delta, who is all the good impulses of him. Um, and they're running around the ship and they're trying to figure out what's going on. Oh,
Badgie, Gucci.
there you go, exactly. Uh, it's and they kept trying to like find different they keep looking for like new tricks to get him to almost sort of like the way Kirk would like put a
Mm-hmm.
computer in a logical paradox. He's like, what does logic say you get out of killing people? Because he's taking over the Cerritos and he's sending gas, and it was particularly, let me check my notes, Nerzine gas, which was used to used by the Dominion, and used by the Cardassians in Deep Space Nine. So it's nasty.
Yeah, yes.
But he points out logically he doesn't get anything from it. And then he splits once more into, again, evil, Badgie, and Logicy, a copper covered or bronze colored badge. And, who takes on a distinctly Vulcan sort of demeanor. Like he's not super emotional. He like tenses his fingers, and he's very calm, much like a Vulcan is. and Badgie then breaks his back, um, killing
Mm,
him, and it looks like he's going to win. He's going to because he has all this Starfleet knowledge because Rutherford built it into him.
right.
He he's about to take over like every ship, every station, every and he's just doing it through subspace.
And he does.
He
He
does.
succeeds. He succeeds. Evil wins.
Evil wins. You see him do the the check my notes. I'm sorry. There was the U.S. Vancouver, which is that admiral's ship, Douglas Station, Deep Space Nine, and the Vulcan ship Cheval, which is where Lin came from, and we see the same crew from that ship from uh, the second to last episode of the previous season, season two. I'm going to say because this is season four, and we didn't get to Lin until season four, and though she
Right.
showed up at the end of season two. So that ship too, and when he gets there, he has like this sort of like cosmic epiphany. And rather than kill everybody, he just wait. No, Saber wins. Well, Saber always wins.
Yes.
Uh, it's in his contract. Um, uh, he ascends to another plane of existence. He's like, maybe I'll hang out with the Q continuum or check out the Black Mountain. And he goes through this sort of cosmic portal, and he sees the koala, uh, who is, I guess, the sort of the doorman of higher existence. I'm not exactly sure what the koala's significance or job is, but
And
when
I don't think
something,
we will ever know.
I
I
don't think
hope.
we, nor
I
should
hope
we.
Yeah, we shouldn't have. The koala should just be the greatest mystery in Star Trek.
There's a lot of stuff. There's so many things that are much better if they're left unexplained. I think the koala numbers amongst them.
Yes.
Um, and
Although
the
there is
day
one
is
thing I would
saved.
like explained because I didn't get the reference, and maybe
Okay.
someone who's a better nerd than I can explain that. The Black Mountain. I don't know what the Black Mountain referenced.
I don't think it's a specific. If it is a reference to something, it is a very deep cut. I can't speak to it, but if any of our viewers or listeners know, please pipe up because we'd like to be schooled and educated. Um, so this was, I think, quite a good episode. And the tag is that Rutherford brings uh, Gucci back to the Cerritos. Um, and as we see in the opening, he's trying to attach a grappler to that shuttle that they're constantly working on in that little like work bay. Um, and they like everybody agrees the grapplers are pretty good. Like that seems
Mm-hmm.
to be the consensus, as was discussed in those old scientists. Um, that even our our resident Noonien Singh, security officer, finds grapplers cool. Um, from Enterprise, for those of you who are unfamiliar, pre tractor beam, they shot out cables with like a little grapple hand thing at the end,
Mm-hmm.
how they would pull in other ships or you know grapple things that needed grappling. It's right in the name. I'm talked too long about this,
Yes.
but uh,
Well,
he's
we all know
he's
the
added
grapplers
Badgie
are
to the
cool.
AI to work it, and everybody is suitably freaked out.
Yes.
Um, so what I hope Guji doesn't turn bad. I think that would be a little. I like the idea of Guji being good and still unnerving everybody in the
Yeah.
on the
I
ship.
hope. I hope we just put a. I don't want to say retire. The goodly badly thing, but just only bring back Gucci on occasion.
Yeah, Guji is good for like a quick bit,
Yes.
but I think do we have a Saber wins? Yes, we know. All right, Craig, and we have to keep saying that. Uh, we know Saber wins. Saber, agent of chaos. Well,
This
to be
is
fair, all cats are agents of chaos,
chaos.
uh, unless they're asleep. In which case,
They're still plotting more chaos.
well, clearly, I don't think anybody would disagree with that. So, overall, I would say this was a lot of fun. I've always enjoyed Badgie. I liked the conclusion to Badgie's arc because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes when you've got these sort of villainous characters sort of lurking around, you're like, whatever happened to them? And it gets a little, like they can be overused. I'm glad that they had a resolution to it. Agree, says Chris. We have seen our fair share of Badgie. I think, and he's, I, like I said, I'm hoping to see Gucci again. Probably not this season, but if he pops up again for a quick bit,
Yeah.
I'm perfectly happy. So
Shax
Sax
refers.
refers to the Black Mountain earlier sessions right after his resurrection. Yeah, that is
Okay.
what happened when you die, apparently in Starfleet, or maybe other, maybe in some other, maybe universe wide, is if you can defeat the foes on the Black Mountain and climb it, you can return to the land of the living. Um,
Okay.
Apparently,
Okay.
very traumatic, as Rutherford found out when Shax explained it all to him. He seemed quite upset after that bit of reveal. So yeah, I'm going to give it a thumbs up.
Thumbs
I
up.
quite
Yes.
enjoyed this episode. A lot of action, a lot of fun, um, and a resolution of three characters, three character arcs, which
Yeah.
uh,
Which is
and there is something that happens in this episode, which I will not discuss, but it has bearing on the episode that just dropped, episode 9, which we'll be discussing next week, along with the finale. But it occurred to me, like, I was thinking, have they? I'm like, yeah, it kind of does. So, for
well.
those who've seen it, you can figure it out or not. There's no prize.
Well, just taking this episode into
Yeah.
account, we had speculated that whoever was flying around in the ship
Yes.
destroying other, we had speculated at one point that it was Badgie.
Yeah, that was the theory. That was one of my two guesses. So we can cross that one off the
Right, that one.
list.
Yep.
It is not Badgie, but who it is, we will probably find out um, in the upcoming episodes, and I'll say no more about that.
Yes.
So we both enjoyed it. So let's move on
Yes.
now to caves. I'll
Caves.
give you a very brief thing. This is the Fab Four, who are lower deckers, have a mission together again because we haven't really seen them all have a mission together this season. They've sort of been split up and doing other stuff again, but it's a stupid cave mission. And as they're beaming down, yeah, there's Boimler being you know pinned by the grappler at the end. They kept trying to use an apple, but they could never quite grab that apple. I imagine it would destroy that apple as well. Although Boimler doesn't seem, aside from being upside down and pinned to the bulkhead, he doesn't seem worse for the wearer. So maybe it's a
Right.
little gentler than we anticipated. So okay, so as they're beaming down because they're all like they're coming down. They're like, oh my god, we're all working together. And they find out it's a cave mission, and Mariner immediately sort of starts like acting like a 5-year-old who's being told
I don't want to
they,
go.
I don't want to go. They have to go someplace.
Stupid cave mission.
Stupid cave mission. And she finishes her statement as they beam down into the cave. And she's like, "Oh, it feels like 30% of our missions are in caves." And both Rutherford and Tendy are very excited to be in cave. They're like, I love the flat floors, and the weird musty smells." And even Boimler's like, it's like damp, but like just the right amount of damp, you know. And they're there to check out this mold, which is in the cave, which is distinctly probably not one of the more glamorous missions you would
Right.
get in Starfleet. But a cave-in traps them all, um, and of course, as we know in Star Trek, the only thing that can defeat your communicator with hundreds of years of technological advancement is rock.
Is rocks.
So this is an interesting. This is sort of a mix up, or not mix up, but a sort of. On one hand, they're sort of mocking the cave up, and Star Trek's had a lot of cave episodes, starting with. I don't know if this is the first one, the one I always think of, which is Devil in the Dark from TOS, the Horda.
Okay. Ooh, that's one of
Um,
my favorite episodes of all
which
time,
is an
too.
excellent episode. I makes me now. I feel like I should go back and rewatch it. I haven't seen it in a
Same.
while.
Me too.
Um, there've been a lot of episodes with caves, and they're right. It's a flat floor, and they all kind of look alike. Um, we've seen caves in TOS a lot. We've seen them in TNG. Caves are like a good go-to when if you want to maybe not spend as much money on an episode because you've got that cave set, you can just roll that right out. Um, and the mold starts growing, and it turns out that it eats Tendy's boot, and it is growing after Mariner kicks it in a bit of petulance. So she's like, it's not a tantrum, despite somebody insisting that it is, and they're trying to figure it out, and they're all trying to come up with solutions on how to get out. But it's also a clip episode, but
Yes, which is
much like and
cool.
I've forgotten the name of the episode from, it was the second season of TNG, where Riker's in a coma after being poisoned by some alien plant or animal or spores. I don't remember the exact. He was on he was on an away mission. Something happened. He's fighting for his life, and he keeps flashing back to previous episodes from the first and second season, which is probably maybe the worst episode. I mean, it's not as maybe not as bad as the Code of Honor, which is certainly high up there on the
Hmm.
worst episodes of TNG. But it's such a cheap sort of
Yeah.
TV trick. But what we get four different stories from our lower deckers that are fairly short, touch on a lot of those tropes, but we've never seen them before, which
Yeah.
is the best way to do a clip episode is to make new clips to show. Because I don't want to see, I mean, I'd rather just watch that episode again if it was one I
Right.
enjoyed. And I don't want to be reminded of it. If it's an episode I did not care for. So, um,
Which
any thoughts
technically,
on this one?
to be fair, we have well, okay, speaking for myself, I have
Sure.
not had an episode of Lower Decks yet that falls into the I don't care for it category yet.
I would agree. I've enjoyed it top to tail.
Yeah.
It is it is there's some episodes I like better than others, but there isn't one that I ever felt like yeah, that was all right, I guess.
Yeah.
They all have so much good stuff in them. Um, so
I I think my favorite of the individual stories
yes,
was Rutherford's story, just from
yes,
the sheer absurd. Yeah, that one. Just
there's
from the sheer, absurdity of it. Yeah, he has a cave baby. He has a
yes.
cave
Well,
baby.
he and Dr. Tana are going into this cave because they need to find this particular herb, which is good for. I forgot it was some sort of like it's not space rash, but it's a rash of some kind
Yeah.
that they need, and
Let's
they
call
have
it
this.
space rash.
Let's call it space rash, and so they have to. They're in this cave getting, and they have this alien guide woman. She has like blue skin and sort of this like purple sort of square on her bald head, and who's very like, oh, I'm so happy to help you. And so the guy don't think, and I forgot the name of the. Do I have it in my notes? The name of this creature that is in the cave. I do not. Um, but it's so well, it hasn't been seen in years, and of course it does for the rash on your space anus.
Well,
Thank you for that.
thank you
Uh,
for
th-
that. That's I thought that you just get that from eating spicy foods. It's
you can.
there are
It's
other places it'd be worse to have a
the
space
space
rash.
anus, or as is also known, the spanus. Um, so it is. That is why Vidra was so upset. Moving on. Um, but this monster leaps out of the pool. Oh, it's just me
I'm
now, and I'll keep talking.
I'm
Keith,
here. I think I'm
you're
here.
here. I don't know why I'm getting the. I'm certainly. There you go. That's better.
So
Um,
see, so we're running this thing from auxiliary control tonight.
yes.
So I'm willing to bet there was a problem with a power inverter, and that's what I think happened
Yeah.
anyway.
Reverse polarity. That's always the answer.
That's right.
Uh,
That's right. We need some self-sealing symbols.
we do. It's have to stop by Deep Space Nine and pick up some of those. Um, so uh, the monster leaps out of the pool that they're harvesting the herbs from, and knocks this alien guide across the room, and she gets impaled by uh, a stalagmite, and she dies. But then she touches Rutherford, and she's like, "I need to reproduce." And there's this glow. Riley is drunk again. Yes, I'll take
That
you home again, Kathleen. Um, and apparently, that's how they reproduce her species. So Rutherford's belly starts to swell, and the doctor is like, "Well, you're pregnant." He's like, "I feel really uncomfortable about this." She's like, "Well, you're going to be saying that a lot." And then she gives him a cesarean, and he bites down on his boot, uh, and wakes up with the baby. So they have to figure out a way to get out because they don't know how to get back out. And they switch off, sort of looking after the baby, and they make a little phaser X over each cave. There's like all these cave,
mm-hmm.
entrances in this chamber they're in, and they sort of become like a little bit of a family. And the doc, who does not care for babies and or apparently engineers for some reason,
New
sort of warms up.
information.
She does, and you find out that Rutherford would actually make a pretty decent father. Badgie might have disagreed at a certain point, but it seems like he sort of
Oh
found a.
yeah, yeah.
So I don't know whether that's a result of the previous episode, him sort of being a little more aware of sort of fatherly duties, or
It is. It's that's
the
my
baby
head
is a
canon
lot.
now.
The baby is not as suicidal, or sorry, homicidal, I should say, as Badgie. Uh, uh, but they he solves it with science, um, uh, where he programs his tricorder to translate the monster's language, and they're like, "Listen, we're just trying to get out of here, and we're protecting babies." Well, I thought you were attacking my baby, also, and they're like, "He's like, oh, you seem like I've been watching you. You seem like good parents, so I'm going to show you the way out." And they say, "Well, we will tell everybody not to bother you." Um, yes,
And this actually just now occurred to me.
yeah,
So we find out that where they were picking the plants to
yes,
cure the rash on the space anus, uh,
Spanus, yes,
on the Spanus, was essentially part of this creature's children.
yes.
Which means that I'm assuming this means they can't harvest that anymore.
I guess not.
Which
I guess they're going to have to find another source
which
for space
means
anus release
which
or
means
relief.
yes, the crewman they came down here is still suffering from that rash on his penis.
Well, she did harvest some. The alien guy did harvest some at the very beginning, so presumably they still have it. But in the future, they're going to have to find some other solution for uh, Spanus rash.
Right.
But and the doc says, "You wouldn't make a half bad father." She says, "Oh," it says, "Well, I guess you found one engineer you don't hate." She's like, "Shut the fuck up," just back to her old cantankerous self. I do enjoy seeing more of Dr. Ta'ana. We don't
Yeah.
get to see her quite as much as I would like.
Now
Um,
I had to look at the credits for this because
yes,
maybe it's just me, but that didn't at first that didn't sound like Dr. Ta'ana. It sounded like they had some other actress trying to do Tahana. It now according to the credits, it's the same actress.
yeah, I didn't detect a difference, but um, I can't. Uh, it's interesting, but that actress, whose name eludes me at the moment, Gillian Jacobs. She was on uh, uh, Community, but she's a very interesting, a very attractive actress.
Hmm.
She's definitely doing a voice because she does not sing. She doesn't have that kind of gruff, sort of like cigarette and whiskey voice that she has on
Right.
the show. Um, but she's very funny. I didn't detect a difference. I don't know if anybody else did, but apparently it is her.
Yeah,
Um,
it sounded to
so
me like someone was trying to do her, do her voice. Someone was
phrasing,
trying to,
um,
yeah.
but but I enjoyed it quite a bit. Uh, and then Boimler's story, which was the first story, where he's in a cave with Levy. Now, for those of you who don't recall Levy, he's the one who thinks Wolf 359 was an inside job. He's the conspiracy theorist on the Cerritos, um, and he's convinced that the Vidosians, uh, which is the which are aliens that appeared in the original the original animated series, Star Trek
Hmm.
the animated series, and an episode called The Survivor, where they find this lost sort of explorer by name is like Carter something. I looked at all this up before, but
Yeah.
clearly I'm gonna. But he was voiced by Ted Knight from Mary Tyler Moore fame, who played Ted Baxter. No, no. This is my terrible Ted Baxter impression, but he does in the animated series. And the Vidosians are shapeshifters, these sort of tentacular creatures, and uh,
Ooh,
and they're
tentacular.
trying to
Good
find a
word.
way out. And this guy just keeps like spewing all this conspiracy nonsense, and Boimler's like had enough of it because they find like this little like one man sort of you know
Wave
travel
buggy.
pod
Yeah.
like space. Yes, let's call it a space buggy, but it's only got one seat, and he blows it up. He says, "Oh, this is the Vendosia. They're testing our ethics," and he's like, "Why would they care about our ethics?" When Boimler is yelling at me, he says, "Wolf 359 was a tragedy. Q exists. Picard isn't some hologram, and Voyager's EMH is." Um, and Mariner also added that he thought they were all in the mirror universe. So, you know,
Well, there are times I think that's true about us.
I feel like we're in the mirror universe. Anyway, many times, just watch the news. Anyway, but they then the Vidosians appear, and apparently they are doing an ethical test on these two crew members, and they're tied up and thrown in a pit, and they're supposed to be like implanted like pods in their chest cavities while they watch them burst out of each other. But Levy's deep and sort of, let's call it very, its accuracy of his knowledge is wide and varies. Sometimes he's on the money, sometimes he's way off. But the Vidosians are very impressed with that. And Boimler's like, yeah, you're like, you know, you're not a bad guy. They're like, yes, enemies have become friends, and they all hoist them up
Yes.
on their tentacles. And we find out that Boimler has hung out with him on the holodeck a few times. That's the thing, is all these stories. Everybody's like, "What? I've never heard this before."
Yes, yes.
Uh,
Everybody gets, yeah, that.
Mirroring the audience, and the fact that he's like, "It's like that time Dr. Tan and I had a baby." They're like, "What?" It's like, "Well, I told you that." He's like, "No, you didn't. I remember that." Um, Also, meanwhile, Tendy keeps wanting to tell them about the time they were stuck on a turbolift, and Mariner keeps shutting her down. It's like Tendy, I love you, but that's not applicable because they're also trying to find ways of getting out of the cave. Um, and she's, they're, they're sort of shutting her down. And Mariner's story is about how she's leading an away mission with Delta Shift, who, now that I'm looking, the three characters that were with her were sort of parallels to our heroes, because there was the ensign who sort of like, I guess, the mariner. Yeah, there's the mariner analog, um, and the guy behind him is sort of the Rutherford
Right?
analog. He's got an eye patch, um, and there's another guy, who's a young guy who was referred to as like a boy genius, Asaf, I think was his name. And they're stuck in this cave, and they need this again, it's all about finding this right, like we need to find this mineral which we can use to repair the who's it, and we can get out of there. But every time they go closer to it, there's some weird chronoton field, and they keep aging. But everybody's like arguing about who's going to be, who's going to do it. And the other one's like, I'm going to be a spry old lady, and they're like, my hip, and they all, and Mariner does tend to, as we see her age, she looks a lot like her mom. She starts getting that kind of gray streak in her hair that her mom does, and she doesn't look exactly like her mom,
Right.
but you're like, yeah, that I see that,
They did a good job with the family resemblance in the animation.
yes. And we also find out one of the reasons the Delta shift, or do you want to take this? Because I feel like I've been talking a lot.
Uh, yeah, the Delta shift is just like, jealous that, I don't know if jealous is the right word, but it's like, we're never gonna succeed because you guys get all the credit and oh yeah,
Well,
and then
it's
we find out that they keep messing up that Delta shift has to clean up.
yeah, like well, the idea is like I've met the captain like maybe 5 times. I've seen Ransom like 3 times. It was like we're never going to get the attention to get a promotion,
Mm.
like you guys did. Um, and she's like, I thought it was just because you resented the fact that we broke stuff during the day and you had to fix it at night. She's like, well, there's that too. Um, and they sort of she's like, oh, okay, like she understands them better. Um, and apparently there was like this sort of stairway in the cave, which we often see in these sort of Star Trek caves.
Right.
And the other crew member goes up there and he's like, hey, these reverse because he's like a little kid. He says, and you can get it, So everybody is cured except for Asaf. Were they forced to go closer to the cluster of minerals? And
And his leg
he
falls
he
off.
his leg had been broken, and then his leg falls off like when he gets very close, and they drag him back. He's like, "Grab my leg." She's like, "The doc will just grow you a new one." He's like, "Well, what?" And which is probably true, but there's that sort of callous humor that we
Right.
sometimes see. We're like, "You'll be fine."
You'll be
Um,
fine. Walk it off.
yeah. So there's
Oh
the
yeah.
Delta Shift equivalent of our main characters, uh, which is kind of neat. I don't really know all their names, I'm afraid, but
Right.
we haven't gotten a lot of they haven't gotten a lot of screen time. But it was nice, and then as they're as she starts chanting with them, she's like Delta Shift, Delta Shift, and they're
And
like the rest of them are horrified.
horror. What are you
She's like,
doing chanting with them? That's our thing.
yeah, and you know, then Tandy once more tries to like. Also, the mold keeps growing, and they're like having to climb up on a like a ledge to avoid it. Uh, Earlier, they used part of Boimler's uniform to use a phaser to reflect up the ceiling and create these minerals, which they could use to like enhance their signal. Because Brother says, "Boimler, take off your pants," and he's like, "Okay." And she's like, "Well, you didn't even blink." She's like, "Well,
Yeah.
we're roommates." But he does afterwards say, "You could have used my tunic," because Bumlin then takes his tunic and wraps it around his waist, and they're up there, and then and Teddy's like starts talking about the turbo lift again, and Mariner just fucking like goes nuts on her, and then they're all like encased in goo. There we are. There it's.
There we are.
I love
Yes.
Mariner's legs and arms being out like a bizarre puppet, from like some kind of puppet show that your parents force you to go to when you're a
Right.
child, which is slightly terrifying.
And
Um,
then the mold talks to them.
yes, and it wants to hear the Green One story, and
Yes.
uh, Tendy's story is about after the events of the very first episode, where with the black rage goo, for if you catch your mind
Mm-hmm.
back, and they all go to the bar and they start drinking, and Mariner has substituted sit the hole for the real stuff, so they're all pretty hammered, and they're like, Tendy's like, well, what if Dr. Tiana needs me to help me with some surgery thing? And she's like, oh, it'll be fine. Nothing, we're all like, everybody's on downtime now. We'll be fine. So they get into the turbo lift and they're stuck. They become stuck. And they're in there for like 4 hours and they keep but they actually bond over the course of time. Um, they're playing 20 questions and they're like make sort of like a hoop out of their uniform tunics and they're trying to throw socks in it, like they're playing targ, which I guess is the equivalent of horse or pig. uh, here on Earth, and they all sort of end up sort of cuddled up in a pile. And Tandy reveals like I was nervous about being on here because I'm the only Orion. We kind of have a reputation. They're like, no, you're great. You're just a competent officer, and they're kind of like, oh, sort of falling asleep, and then the door is wrenched open and Shaq sleeps in. He's like, I'm here to save you, and they are naturally all terrified. Um, as we see, that's a um, you know
Great still.
great still, and they all laugh, and the Moses, says about like I've never had a friend. He says, will you be my friend? They're like, sure, and
I
this
love.
is
I think it was Tendy's line who said it too. I love the line. I mean, we came here to study you.
yeah, which was nice. And they said, well, I wish to hear more stories while you try to signal your ship. And so, well, Marin's like, oh, I got so many cave stories, and they all start talking. They're laughing, and the bonds of friendship have been restored. And then we go back, and a couple of the stalagmites turn out to be Vidosians again, and they've passed their ethical test. That is a very Star Trek thing. The aliens testing the ethics of humans.
Yes.
Like we saw that in Arena, and in like it feels like there's a lot of episodes where like there's aliens are like like how evolved are you, human? And it's sometimes we're savage, but we're aspiring to something better. Craig says, "Talking cave mold, that brings me back." Yes, that's Craig. You probably shouldn't taste the cave mold. That's maybe why I talk to you, but no judgment. Um,
Little
so
judgment. Little judgment.
it is such a Star Trek idea that aliens are so obsessed with human ethics, and that they
Yes.
understand human ethics. The idea that ethics have a universal constant, uh, which was sort of which again is a very human centric sort of notion.
Yeah, I just got to think about that. I think there, didn't leave me. There are a million Klingons.
There is that's a deep cut for maybe three people. In an old D&D game I was playing, a friend of ours, Stuart Levy, was the DM, and I said, well, I opened this door. He says, "You see a million orcs?" I'm like, "A million?" He says, "It's more like three." So uh, I think he just wanted to have some sort of like imposing amount of orcs, but the idea that I think he like overplayed his hand because I was like, a million. I mean, like, even if orcs only had one hit point apiece, there's no way to even finish that combat. You know, and like that combat would go into grad school. But he wisely reduced the number to three. Uh, so
Yeah.
it's it was this was a nice episode. I find this like I look at it as sort of a palate cleanser
Yes.
because these next two episodes are presumably, I say presumably, the first episode was dropped. I imagine a lot of you have watched it. We're not going to discuss it here, but the assumption, and it's a fairly good assumption, is they're going to address the mystery ship, the season long storyline that has been teased out episode by
Yes.
episode. Um, but this was kind of sweet because we do one because
Yeah.
we haven't seen
It was.
our like as I called them at the beginning of this the Fab Four on a mission together, even if it was a cave mission, and it was nice. And them to remember, like, yeah, we'll always be friends, no matter like we can hang out with other people, but we will always still be friends, which was a lovely, lovely little note to end the episode on.
Yeah, it was. It was. I really enjoyed these two episodes. And just talking about this second guys, I started this program tonight by saying I enjoyed the first one better, the Badgie
Correct.
one better. But I
Yeah.
don't know. The more we talk about this second one, the caves, the more caves is growing on me. I almost feel like I need to
Much
rewatch
like a
caves.
hyper intelligent mold.
Much like
Yes.
a hyper intelligent mold, yes. So I don't I think I'm gonna rewatch Caves again because the more I this conversation has gotten me to think about I like this one. This one sounds kind of cool. This was kind of neat, and as you put it, sweet. It's a fun. It
It
was
was,
this
and
was fun.
it was. I enjoyed both of them. The Badgie episode for a few Badgies more, which obviously a reference to the Clint Eastwood for a few dollars more. That was a lot more action packed. There was a lot like
Hmm.
a lot of different. I mean, it's funny because each set was essentially the same. Like even the stories were all like, with the exception of Tendy's, which was on the Cerritos, they were like, well, this is what it was like on this cave, and they might be tinted slightly different, but they all kind of
Hmm.
look the same. So there wasn't like, they show like an establishing shot of some planet, but a cave is still a cave.
Cave
Um,
is still a cave.
they Mariner crashed their shuttle, which had been struck by like lightning or an ion storm or whatever, like the usual sort of like nonsense, Star Trek nonsense. And she's like, the other answers are complaining about her crashing, and she's like, "Listen, the shuttle's shaped like a brick. I think I did pretty good." Um, which is true because the shuttle is not aerodynamic in the least. If power goes out, that is just
I think it's
that is
just
like a dumpster falling from the sky. There's not enough wingspan to catch any air or glide in. So, hats
that
off
might
to
de-
Mariners
that might depend on how
piloting.
thick the atmosphere is, but the atmosphere would have to be really thick.
That it would have to be pretty damn thick
Yes.
for it to not plummet like a rock. Um, I enjoy these. I'm an unapologetic Lower Decks fan.
Yes.
It I love the Easter eggs. I love the nods to previous stuff. Even it's just like a little throwaway, like the little throwaways, like sometimes a costume or somebody walking in the background. I love that stuff. Um, and it does feel like, especially our four characters, are fans of Star Trek in a weird way.
Yes.
Like Star Trek is not a TV show for them, but they're so aware of like the the voyage, like what went on the Enterprise and Deep Space Nine, and that it's not. Sometimes a spinoff show doesn't address the show that it spinned off from, except for maybe the first episode to sort of
Hmm.
establish the link. Because they want to make it about themselves, but this is. I love the self-referential
Yes. This show is
quality.
about Star Trek.
It is.
Uh, and told through the eyes of the lower decks characters. And
Yeah. I love them all. I think they're all terrific. Eugene Cordero, who does the voice of Brother, you can see him right now on Loki. Uh, he is one of the TVA workers, uh, wearing a short sleeve shirt and tie and khakis. Much of that sort of retro old sort of looks like an engineer from the 1950s. Um, and You also may remember him as Pillboy from A Good Place, Jason Mendoza's dad. Uh,
okay.
so he's all these like I don't know why I said that. I just popped in my head. I'm sharing it with the audience. If you don't like it, I don't know what to tell you, man. The show is free. Um, but I quite enjoy this one. I feel like I've talked way too much. Is my want.
I
Um,
enjoyed this. I enjoyed this show too. I mean, I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. As far as a situation comedy goes, and as far as an animated situation comedy goes, this show really is big with the character development. Um,
it is, and it in a way that even live action shows don't necessarily always do.
mhm,
I mean, like they, I would say like Seinfeld, the characters became more refined, like as they sort of figured out who they were as the show went on. But as evidenced by the finale, they did not seem to have evolved in any way.
no.
They sort of were still kind of selfish and a little, little messed up. Uh, but I'm glad to see our former ensigns, now Lieutenant JGs, getting a little more competent, getting a little more confident too. I mean, Boimler is maybe the best example of that because he was such a wreck in the beginning. He screamed a lot. I'm sure he's still
Hmm.
screaming. It's not that he doesn't scream, but he's you know, like I said with Agamus, he's like, all right, let's just see how this plays out, and we can get this back on track anytime we want. Um, and he took a very measured approach and didn't try to force it. And Tendy was like, yeah, that's fine. Tendy trusted him, or they both trusted each other, and it worked out, which
Mm.
was which I like to see. I'm enjoying the evolution of the characters. We also get to see an evolution of the upper deckers, as we've discussed, because like in the Ferenginar episode, turns out Captain Freeman is a pretty canny negotiator,
Mm-hmm.
um, perhaps more than the admiral, who gave her gave her credit for it.
Yeah, that was a mistake.
Okay, that was clear. It was very long, so
Yeah.
somebody took their time with that mistake. Fair enough. I But I'm enjoying it. I'm two thumbs up.
Yes, two thumbs
Two
up
episodes
here.
each get a thumbs up, or two
And
thumbs up for each one, and that's four thumbs up. Um, you know, how are you? Let's give it to
yeah,
Vulcan
yeah. You see,
salutes.
you put your two thumbs up,
Yeah,
and then 1, 2, 3, 4. See,
yeah.
there we go.
There you go. So I think we've sort of come to the end. Next week we will be back at full complement,
I'm so
discussing the
looking
final
forward to
two
talking about
episodes.
next week. I'm so looking forward to that.
I am very looking
Um,
for much. I'm There's a very unruly part of me that just wants to start blurting out stuff from this
I
week's
know.
episode, but I will use my Starfleet training to not do so. If you've not said, because we don't want to spoil it. Obviously, spoilers for two episodes from the past 2 weeks. I should have said that, but you know what the show is. We
right.
just talk about what's already happened. I quite enjoyed it,
Same here. Me as well.
and just and it does. It is very. There's something very calming about watching a show like Lower Decks, with the world being in sort of the tumultuous state. I will not go into the particulars because we're all well aware of them. But you do need these moments of like calm and be like, oh yeah, there is still we can still enjoy things in the world, and it's not all terrible. But our thoughts. I don't want to say prayers, because I don't want. I certainly don't want to dismiss anybody's spiritual beliefs,
Mm,
but actions speak louder than words. So if there's something going on in the world that you are not happy with, there are plenty of ways to make a positive change. Whether you donate to a charity, whether you volunteer, uh, or whether you just listen to somebody who's going through a hard time, which is matters more than you might know. Uh, so sometimes it's good to just sit and listen, or distract somebody with an episode of Lower Decks. So let's. That's about it. I would say. I think we're just a little over the hour mark. So
yes.
I think it's time to say goodnight. And I'm
All
going to
right.
say thank you again, Keith, for being
On.
here with me, and thank you to the audience for watching us,
Thank you,
if you're still
everybody.
here.
Thank you. I have
And
no idea
Chris,
how
thank you for
this.
running things on the other end for us.
Yeah, I have no idea how this is going to end.
Well, I think we're going to say this is it. Yep.
There we go. Yay!